Thanks for tuning in to Gin and Tantra, Spirituality with a Twist. We have one of our contributors today with us, Dr. Rory. Rory, thanks for tuning in. We have a special guest today who is a friend of Rory that I will allow Rory to do the introduction to. Rory, please take it away.
So I have the great honor of introducing today one of my brothers, I can say, I'm proud to say. His name's Nathan Orchard, a living legend of jujitsu, mixed martial arts. I've gotten to corner him a couple times. I think has the most appearances in like EBI, Combat Jiu-Jitsu Worlds. He's been around forever. Combat Jiu-Jitsu World's champion. He's been a finalist like 6 or 7 times at these things. It's
Too many.
probably more. Yeah.
Mm,
And and not also is he, such an incredible warrior spirit. You should feel his Sanjao pulse. But
ah,
I still don't
but
know what that means fully, but
yeah.
sounds cool. So
But he's got a great heart too,
mm.
and he's a good person, and
I'll stop it. You're making me
he's
blush.
really well, yeah, he's really trying to get to the truth of things. So
I
that's
love
a
that.
trait I really admire.
Awesome.
I do
Well,
love truth. I can't think of anything actually more important to me. You know what I mean? Really, like what else is the point, really?
yeah, I agree. Rory, thank you for that wonderful introduction. That was
Thank you,
Nate,
bro.
that's a high bar, man.
I
Yeah, my pleasure.
exaggerated.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, so we are in the kind of like the beginning stages of our series on kind of like cults, social psychology, like I say, intellectual epidemics, if you will. And given that Rory had mentioned that Nate had a very interesting upbringing, and as he was involved in kind of like the Mormon Church, and then that, I think is we'll let Nate tell his story, but was an aspect of him being involved in like the jiu-jitsu community moving forward in the his now current life and work and everything else. And so we want to hear about how he came up, how his experiences were, and see what kind of extrapolations we could take from that. So Nate, tell us a little bit about like
Wow.
your upbringing, where'd you grow up, kind of all that.
Sure. Yeah, I grew up in Southern Oregon, Grants Pass, Oregon, and yeah, I grew up, Mormon, born into the LDS church, and my parents very active. I grew up very, very active in it. Um, it's funny because I don't think too much about that life anymore, and then there's like the time when boom, I became like into the martial arts for life, and so
Hmm.
I really left the Mormon church and I started really questioning my reality when I was 16. And
Hmm.
I chewed on it for 5 years until I was finally like, oof, okay, I can like let that go. And it did go hand in hand with my martial arts and all of that sort of thing. But my dad was a long haul trucker, and so he wasn't home all that much. And I think that the way I got into martial arts is just honestly out of fear, right? I was maybe felt unsafe in the world and wanted to feel safe. And I think that's what drove me to do martial arts initially. And I think I just have like some warrior DNA or something. I don't know, but I just always liked that sort of thing. The Ninja Turtles ever since I was, super young. And um, yeah, so but over the years, I guess it's kind of alchemized, right? And that like where I started off from fear, it's kind of given me my whole life. So, it's all good. It's cool.
Right. So you've alchemized that aspect of uncertainty into an internal drive towards transformation.
I mean, that's what it seems like for me because again, it was a place of like wanting to feel safe. And in that, I trained a lot. And then I realized like when I was doing jujitsu and martial arts, I just didn't have anxiety or
Mm,
depression.
mm,
It's just great. I realized is when I felt the very best all day long was when I was training. So I was like, all right, well, cool. I'm going to train more, and, over time. And then I realized, negative thought patterns and, I reprogrammed negative. And this is something I need to like do again. You know what I mean? Cause it slips, but
yeah,
we
yeah.
fall into these negative thought patterns. And so the first thing you gotta do is like realize that and then have a programmed positive thought, which for me was like getting my hand raised on the mat, right? So
Mm,
I spent a lot of time training. And then when I noticed negative thoughts, I would just visualize getting my hand raised on the mat. That was just my go-to to just override any negative thought. And then it turned into, my living and what's, helped me travel the world and provide for my family, So
mm.
it's turned into something really beautiful. And now it's something I don't do out of fear. Like that's gone. I mean, not really because I'm still like a survivalist at heart sort of guy. I don't know. I've just literally always been like that.
Yeah. So how old were you when you left the church?
Yeah. So like I said, when I was 16, I started just being like, things are weird. I think initially, actually, I distanced myself from the church because of guilt, right? It's just like there's a lot of guilt for just being a human um, in religion, oftentimes, and so that made me kind of like separate myself, and then you start really questioning, be like, you know what? I've never actually thought for myself before,
Mm,
so I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna clear the slate and be like, all right, what do I actually think? And is it this? Is it that? And I wasn't Mormonism, once I
hmm.
cleared the slate and started over, yeah, I was like, all right, I actually didn't know because nothing made all that much sense. And then I went to aliens, 10th planet, jujitsu, Nibiru, so on and so forth, right? It just kind of goes from there. And, like that kind of stuff made more sense to me than anything. And I mean, geez, that rabbit hole goes crazy from there. I mean, it all is from there, really.
Hmm. So you're 16 years old,
Yeah.
and let me, because I think myself and like probably most of our audience doesn't know many people who were in any kind of church like that, a Mormon church or some other kind of. I think they're would you say that they're fairly like closed off in terms
Oh,
of
yeah.
right
I
from the
mean,
out?
they're like really friendly people, but they're
Sure.
very, like sheltered and
Hmm.
like, yeah, they are repressed in a way, right? Because again, like I mean, listen, there's beautiful things about it, like for one, like, and who cares what, I don't know, everyone's got different situations, but like
Sure.
one thing I've realized was a blessing for me was like never seeing my parents drink. You know what I mean? Like I just never experienced that. I just never saw my parents get stupid in that way, And so that's
Hmm.
cool, Like there's definitely positive things that came from the Mormon church and actually religion at large, right? But to
Yeah.
me, religion's just like training wheels. Like you got to take off those training wheels and they teach you good things to start with, but or the old you use the boat to cross the river, then you get out of the boat and keep going, you
Right.
know. So
Right.
I can't bash on it too much, but it is weird, and there's different branches that are. Yeah, it is a wild world.
Sure. Yeah, and I think that's a part of the understanding of it from being on the outside is having somebody who was inside, right? To for not so eloquently put. But I feel like at some point, especially when someone's a teenager, right? Your hormones are kind of coming online and you're looking at whatever, some object of your desire, and you are at the first time aware of your own kind of how you present. You're aware of your appearance because you might find out, at least I did, that not everybody who I liked me, which was really disappointing. Now, we all are not as handsome as Rory is, who can just, roll through the world and snap his fingers. But, like we have to deal with some maybe loss or not loss, but like rejection and things like this. So then now we have to kind of look at ourselves and say, hey, is this how I want to appear? Do these clothes fit me? Am I comfortable in my body? Um, and then you maybe even have some more kind of existential questions about what is the world? Where do you fit in it? How does this make sense? And so, this is a genuine question I have, and no, and throughout none of this, I know we didn't talk about this before, but throughout none of this am I being facetious or belittling in any way. So don't ever take that as this. What did they teach you at all about thinking for yourself?
Oh no, no. I mean, I mean, but really, no one teaches kids how to think for themselves, even schools, right? Like logic is not taught in schools. It's just not, at least from my experience and what I see, like true critical thinking is actually not taught.
Hmm.
And, again, it goes deep as far as whatever controlling powers don't want people to think for themselves necessarily. So, I mean, again, and plus I never questioned it because I would just, everyone was telling me the same story from the moment I was conscious. And so why would I question it? And
Right.
I piece it all together. And there's like a lot of cool stories too of battles and wars in the Book of Mormon and like some really cool and interesting and, lots of things you can even learn from. But
Mm-hmm.
and so it keeps you in for a while, and then you just really, yeah, hit a point where you're like, I don't know, something's just off.
Yeah.
And because I don't like being told I'll find out later. I think
Mm.
that's a cop out.
Mm.
I mean, in logic, that's a fallacy, basically. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, if we can't apply logic and our direct experience, but you're supposed to like make your whole life decision off of these things, I don't know. Couldn't do it. That was it. Plus, honestly, I always wanted to be a soldier, actually. I wanted to join the military and go special forces and be so I didn't ever really even want to go like the Mormon boy way and go on a mission.
Mm-hmm.
I always planned on just going out and being a warrior, you
Yeah.
know. And
Yeah.
then and then I was 17 years old and I shattered my ankle playing football. 16 fractures, foot 180 degrees backwards. I mean, it was just
Oof.
oh God, it was hell. Yeah. And I said in all the pain and the surgery, and I said out loud, I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy. And then I was like, oh, damn, I can't be a soldier. I can't go kill people for like
Mm.
I don't want to go hurt people, which is ironic because now I became a professional martial artist. But the idea is to not hurt someone but still beat them. You get what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
yeah, so that was a eye opener for me there. But
Yeah, that's a deep one. Rory, I mean, same question to you because I find this to be kind of a fascinating thing.
Mhm.
When do you remember first having the kind of like seed of questioning? How old were you? What did that look like? Because I think this is an interesting question, like for just people in general, right? So thanks for sharing that, Nate. But that brought up something good. It's like at what
Yeah.
point do we go, I don't know. Man, actually, who is asking the question? What question do I even want to answer?
Yeah, I'm not sure about religiously. I mean, I remember like Sunday school back in the day, but
Mm-hmm.
the first thing that comes to mind is like just with my own family and then and, being like, different family members and sort of like emotions being kind of leveraged against you in a kind
Hmm.
of way. Like, would you come to the store? Do you want to come to the store with me? And then I'll be like a little kid, I'll be like, do I have to? And then be like, yeah, no, but I'd really love for you to. And then I could just sense that, I could sense someone was trying to use my emotions to force me into a decision.
Hmm.
And I just had no problem saying, no, no, I'm not doing that. And so, yeah, and that was something my dad even said in my, like a wedding speech. He was like, you could dress him up and, make him do these things, but you could never tell him how to think.
Hmm.
And, um, but that said, I do still get caught up in my own cults and all that.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
yeah,
That's true.
yeah,
Yeah, there's a light side and a dark side to everything, right?
yeah.
I could say for me, I don't know if that it was a questioning thing, but I think Nate, it was maybe an observation of a dichotomy. Kind of like how you were saying, Rory, is that like you're doing one thing, but you're not totally in it. Even if you're dressed up, you're just like, no, you can't. I'm not all the way in. I'm in the water, but I'm still breathing air. I remember being, a young kid and my mother's side of the family, very, very church oriented folks. They're like Orthodox, kind of Eastern Orthodox, Greek Orthodox folks. And so sometimes we would be in the church and we'd be doing Sunday school. And then my parents got divorced when I was quite young. My mom would take us to different kind of temples, and we would be in, doing the Sunday school, but in a temple. And instead of reading some kind of Bible, we would read Aesop's fables. And I just remembered some of the differences and similarities in the stories that were obviously geared towards kids. And but even as a kid, I was like, oh, this is obviously a kid story. You know, these two rabbits hiding in a tree. I don't remember any of them, but I just remembered that like that was geared towards us, but in a different way. And the lessons that I got from Aesop's fables seemed to me to be a little bit more encumbering of life than the stories that came from the Bible, which were geared to bring you back towards a very specific kind of viewpoint. And it was the juxtaposition of those two things that got me to be like, they're feeding me, the user in this case, two different narratives. One that feels more, I could say now like allegorical versus the other one, which is kind of more linear, trying to guide me somewhere. And I did not like being guided. Like I knew that at that time I did not like being guided. So that's kind of for mine. But Nate, let me ask you, do you feel like as you sort of as your kind of like your own independence came online, if I could say that, when you were like 16, 17, do you feel like you had support from the people around you that you could go to, people in your community because you grew up in this thing? Did you feel like a kinship with anybody in particular that you could go and be like, hey, I don't know, these just doesn't feel right. What do you think? Or did you have to kind of leave that community in order to be able to get some of that support?
Oh, I cut it off completely. I
Mm,
mean, it was just like, friends from school or like guys I played football with or wrestle at, stay at my friend's house. Like, no, I had, it was two different lives. It was like Mormon Nathan, not Mormon Nathan. And
mm,
they just didn't blend whatsoever.
mm.
So it was, again, I started a whole new life, and it was a whole new everything. And but that's fine because I was so into sports and I was so close with my friends and all that back then that it all worked out. But yeah, I know I left that church, didn't even look back. And
Mm.
it was crazy.
And is your family still involved?
Um, that's not really, not mostly. A little bit here and there, but it's hard to know exactly everyone's
Sure.
position. It's a touchy subject, and honestly,
Yeah.
as information comes out, it gets harder and harder to stay in the church. But man, when you have built your entire life around seeing the world a certain way, it's
Mm,
terrifying to consider the idea that you don't know what the hell's going on anymore. And so
mm.
some people literally stay in, I think, because it's just easier. Oh, there goes, gosh dang it.
Little technical difficulty, but we're back.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Oh,
So
you're
what
good.
was I? Oh, I was saying that people, it's so terrifying to consider that you don't know how to see the world anymore if you give up on this belief that you've had your entire life. So they just stay in because it's easier and more comfortable. You know,
Mm,
it's tough, but I've also seen people. I don't want to give their story away too much or anything like that because it's all very sensitive.
yeah.
Um, but I've seen people that I never thought would open their mind, and they did, and they really have, even in much older age, been like, close family members be like, wait, something's not adding up, and then they change their whole. They are brave enough to step out of it, and again, you become alienated from your old. You can't even talk to the people that you used to go to
Mm,
church with anymore because there's such a disconnect. It's hard to even be in the same room because there's a giant elephant in the room that you can't talk about and be like, yo, you haven't considered these things, and
hmm.
they don't want to hear it. So yeah, it's
Have you
rough.
had the opportunity, Nate, to talk to people who were considering leaving the church or have left or been in a part of anybody's process like that? Not to sway them, just to be kind of like, I'm happy to chat with you because I could have used maybe somebody like myself when I was younger.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. No, I've definitely been there for people. I mean, I've, I don't want to tell any, I just like to ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'll just ask them questions and it just
Mm-hmm.
leads them down the road themselves. I don't have to say anything or point anything out or do anything. It's just, and so I have seen very close people go through it and me be able to walk them through the confusion of
Mm,
being like, damn, I saw the whole world, this model of the world, and now you feel lost. If you lose all your frame of reference, like, okay, how do you navigate the world now? What is going on?
mm-hmm.
And not to say I have any answers, but like I've done years and years and years of seeking, and I have found things that help me make sense of the world. And again, across the board, even Buddhism, I mean, just like basic philosophies that just make things make more sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. If you don't mind sharing, what are some of the like, if you like to ask people some questions, maybe not even necessarily like bound to the church, but just like
Sure.
in general, like are there some things that you like to ask people to get them, even like students of yours, if they're
Sure.
wrestling with something in their own life, they come to you as their coach or their, their professor, right? I think that's what in jujitsu, that's what you're called, is the professor.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. No one calls me professor. I don't.
Right. But that's the
Whatever. Yeah,
term.
that's it. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, professor is
Yeah.
is usually what people say. Um, you know, I one of the things I just like that I think of myself is like, or I will say is like, I'm not interested in God. I'm interested in reality because
Mhm.
God is too confusing. There's so many gods. There's so many. Some people believe in their God so much they'll literally kill other people for it.
Yes.
And so it's too confusing. And so I'm like, hey, I don't actually want to talk about God. I want to talk about existence because even God exists. And sometimes it's fun to personify existence, right? Like,
Hmm.
what would the God of existence be like? This vast being, and any God that you could perceive objectively, they also have existence. Existence is fundamental. Everything else changes, right? And so it's just like even the gods are there, whatever, everything in movement we change, but it's just like the cradle of everything that changes is existence itself.
Mm.
Existence is the only unchanging. So when you start kind of going down that road, it changes people's thought about, whoa, 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 hold on now. I've been, you zoom out one step,
Hmm.
and that just does a lot.
Yeah. That's I like the way that you put that. Rory, how does that fit? Well, and Rory's here just hanging out, you know. Um, Rory, I mean, I know we've kind of talked about it numerous pieces, but when you hear him talk like this, and I know you guys probably
Mhm.
talk like this on a regular basis, when you hear that, like what comes up in your mind when he starts saying like existence? And especially with your, all the years that you've spent studying with the Dohan, the Taoist Dohan clan, like how do you what does that bring up in your mind? You know?
Well, it pumps me up. That's probably why we're such good friends, because it's, existence, that's like pure being. And so I think of like the Tao. So before, the unchanging way, the unchanging Tao, like that's just pure being that everything springs from. Do you know what I mean? And so
Mm-hmm.
ideas like God, I love that. And, it's so saying like God, yeah, it's the same thing. Like Tao called Tao isn't Tao.
Mm.
So to it's such a loaded word, God. So you're evoking like so many things with that, but being still and knowing, be still and know that I am God. It's that just that beingness is God. You know, and I love that. And I love the utility of asking questions to get someone out of like these deeply grooved
Mm.
kind of thought patterns. I was thinking about this actually the other day. I was thinking about how many of our thoughts are just like patterns that we've woven that
Mm-hmm.
are just like our go-tos that don't have like a real understanding beneath them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was driving with my wife and I was thinking about like just even in like biology, like different concepts I had memorized,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
maybe like I wasn't totally sure of all the mechanisms beneath it. I just had a very like, you know, the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. So I
Mm-hmm.
thought of that, and I asked my wife, "What does the mitochondria do again?" She said, "It's the powerhouse of the cell." And it's like, yeah, that's the answer. But the understanding is alive. Like real thinking is alive and like connected with God, and it's a part of it. I feel like is this seeking. quality, like seeking for the truth that
Mm,
really turns you on.
yes. There is a so Nate, you brought this up, and then Rory, you kind of just reinforced it for me because there's a question I was going to ask, and now is a good, I think is a good time. There is a as a fellow seeker, there is it's not an unsettledness, but it is a little bit. It's like, yes, I found something that's brought me closer to what I believe. I want to feel it and I want to have insight at the same time. Like that's the thing. Sometimes you'll learn something and you're like, "Ooh, that hits," right? And then other times you're like, "Oh, wow. That's awesome. You kind of get this thing." And I think the when those things align, that's when you're like, "Oh, that now that's kind of a permanent thing. I've created a new groove, something that transcends one or the other, and then it's kind of both, right? The union of both." But you brought this up, Nate, when you're talking about this, and then Roy just said it. The idea that people might be, we could say fearful, or we can say patterned, or we could say shamed, or maybe we could say complacent in their choices to remain inside of a community A, or maybe even we can do it extrapolate at one more level, when they can remain locked into a thought pattern or thought patterns that are based on larger philosophical foundations, right? So we can look at this religiously and say people have been in a religion for a long time. Maybe they're not fully questioning it, they're just kind of going their thing. Or we could even say, definitely politically, people are locked into their things and therefore they're just like, okay, give me what's the next thing I should think about? Okay, cool, perfect. Yeah, that totally fits my narrative. I knew I didn't like that person anyways. Ha 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 ha. That guy sucks. You know what I'm saying? Or do anything, right? I mean, whatever. Um, I want to talk about this a little bit because I feel like this is, so I've read a little bit, we've been talking about the kind of social psychology of like cults and things like this, but I thought that that was a really interesting point because it will challenge if you are not complacent. And if, and that's a really nice word, but I want it to be insulting, but it's not really insulting because complacency is not insulting. But I would like it to be slightly insulting. So if you're not insulted by that, please be and take offense. I would like to hear what you think about like this idea on a larger level that it would be difficult for people to change long held the difficulty of changing long held beliefs in the in relation to their identity
Mm.
because ultimately who are we?
Yeah.
We, at least from my perspective, we are who we are who we say that we are. We are who we tell ourselves who we are. So if I ask, you know, Rory, who are you? Well, he's an acupuncturist, he's a this, he's a husband, he's a practitioner, he's a businessman, he's a jujitsu player, he's a okay, all the other things. And Nate, I do that. You ask people who they are, they're going to give you a list of things that they do
Yeah.
or a list of things that they learn. But that's not the question. The question is who you are. And so I want to give you some time to talk here. Like in your transformation, I guess, of yourself, where you started to question, okay, reality, then you had this kind of like injury that shifted what you thought your future would be. You had to make a move towards a new kind of place for yourself, which led you to question what you had been taught and then what you were going to learn. So I guess with all of those, all of that as the lead in, like
Yeah.
you're nodding, so I will let you take it over from here.
Yeah. I mean, again, like I learned that there are basically three levels of reality. There's the subjective level, the objective level, and then the absolute.
Hmm.
And from the absolute, well, let's just say subjectively, is I have an experience, like I might see red differently than you see red. That's my
Hmm.
subjective experience. And then objectively, we can agree this is both the desk. Now, objective reality also gets argued about sometimes. And so
Sure.
that's confusing and difficult, whatever. But then from the absolute level of reality, there's kind of not a discussion to even have because it's the absolute and there is no separation from anything, right? And so
Hmm.
when you talk from that level, you again, there's no talking. It's just silence is the real truth. You can the moment you start talking, it's beautiful and it's fun and it's interesting, but it's like the Tao. You cannot say the Tao. What how does it go? The nameless. If you
The,
can say it is not. I don't know, I can't.
the
I'm
Tao
butchering.
that can be named is
You
not the
got
true
it.
Tao.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say. Thank you. Exactly. Right. So
So you said it.
I didn't say anything. Yeah. And so, okay, cool. So let's jump back one level and be like, okay, well, then how do we make sense of objective reality? If we
Yeah.
can't talk about the absolute, sure, how the hell do we figure out what the hell's going on here? You
Mm-hmm.
know? Um, well, I think that first of all, like you said, complacency is not a good thing, because it
Mm-hmm.
means you're not evolving, and evolution is what keeps you alive, right? So when you and that's in martial arts or sports or just anything, the world, the technology, everything's going crazy and is going fast. And if you don't change with it, that's the key word, change. Plus, again, change is an immutable law, right? You can't not change. So to resist change is where all this just pressure and grind happens. It's like, no, you are change, or your experience is nothing but change. So the moment where you're like, nope, got it figured out, well, you're not changing anymore. You're dying, really. So that's the thing, is people just need to truly be aware of like, okay, if I was presented new evidence, would I change my mind? That's a good question to ask yourself, right?
Mm.
And I think that some people want to hide behind belief, and belief and faith are two different things, right? Like
Yes.
belief infers not knowing. Gosh dang it. Okay. Yeah. So belief and faith are two different things.
Mm-hmm.
Belief infers not knowing. And I got this definition of faith from a great friend of mine, a teacher, Eric. He said that faith should be a respectful and loving trust that is subject to verification. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just like, okay, cool. You know more about jujitsu than me. I'm going to listen to you because I have faith, but I will put that information you gave me through the verification process, and that will lead me to knowledge, which, so faith is what muddles things. And so if we're not actually constantly putting things through the verification process,
Mm-hmm.
there you go. That's it. That's the formula. If you're done verifying, that's probably not good. Yeah.
Yeah, never be done verifying. That's the unsettledness of the seeker.
Yeah, that I mean, which is a little bit frustrating because it would be,
Yeah.
sometimes we feel like, oh, I wish I could just know, but it's like you can't. I mean, you are what you are searching for. So it's just a silly game we play. Um, anyway, it goes crazy from there. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I
Yeah.
get it, I don't get it, I forget, I remember, I find it again, I lose it again, and I just keep going.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah. Yeah. Rory, let me give you a minute to jump in here because there's so many like Taoist and Buddhist terms that like come up in just different
Yeah,
language.
definitely. I think, we're so, I mean, we talk about the earth element being the center of the four, and on the, it's the middle burner that we digest our life through these narratives. And so we define ourselves in terms of others, in terms of this, through this earth element. And so we cling to that, really is like our identity, is these conceptual schematics
Yeah.
of reality. And so it's actually funny. I was listening to a Jeffrey Ewan lecture today
Hmm.
on the Neijing 2, on like the whole microcosm, that old chart.
I do. Most
And
people probably don't, and I'm not going to pull one up to put on the
yeah,
screen.
yeah,
So, but yeah.
yeah. Just to summarize this one point, um, there was one line on it that said the key to enlightenment is your through the level of basically the middle burner. So through like being Xiao Yao and free and easy at your conceptual level. And there was like some type of like weaving instrument. So it's like weaving together of your conceptions of reality. And so in order to find enlightenment, not only do you have to change your conceptions, well, I guess you could say changing your conceptions is changing who you are
Yes.
as a person. I think that's really what it means. And then eventually being free of conceptions. You're not defining yourself in terms of other.
here's something that I'm thinking is like, okay, if you were so sure that reality was a certain way, and then something completely out of pocket happens, like aliens come down, or a zombie apocalypse, or who knows what crazy weirdness, AI takes over and there's the robot wars. I don't know. But it's just like, if you are fixed in how you think reality should be, I mean, you're going to get thrown a curveball. And so one thing I'm always saying is like, I'm kind of ready for whatever is the weirdest, craziest possible thing that can happen, because I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, it's hard to know, but if you were really stuck in a certain belief system, you're going to be pretty sure that it's going to play out one way. And so when it doesn't play out that way, you're going to have a super hard time adapting and evolving. And, imagine if you believed so much in a certain narrative that aliens didn't fit in whatsoever. And then one day aliens bloop down. What I'm saying is, you better be just open to even the craziest things you could never imagine, because otherwise, again, you're losing that adaptability and that ability to change how you see the world. So, you can't
Yeah.
ever act like you know what's up.
So, all right.
Yeah.
Something I wanted, so, and you've kind of been giving these answers as we've been going on, but I just wanted to kind of like make it succinct. So, in this thought experiment, there is a young person or an older person, we'll just say a person who is locked very firmly into their belief system. Okay? And maybe that's somebody who was in the Mormon church who you might have met along the way. Maybe it's a family member who you don't see eye to eye with politically. Maybe it's somebody who is, and this is not as popular as it was a few years ago, but like is really deep down into like the conspiracy theories, like super deep. You know what I mean? Like just all the things. Okay.
Totally.
But their their thoughts are hampering their ability to connect with other people. Their thoughts are inhibiting their own expression of their own individuality in life, which I find to be probably the most detrimental part of any kind of cult, regardless of whatever it is that inherently in your as a requirement for your membership, your own individuality must be yielded. And that to me is probably the biggest most sad part about that, about whatever, is that in order to be a member of us, I need your personality. You get to keep whatever little pieces you want of yours, but like I'm going to tell you how to think, talk, act, and be so that you are more of a representation of what I think we are than who you think you are. And that to me is an unconscious robbery of authenticity, and it's an unconscious robbery of one's ability to evolve, right? To question, to change your conception, to question the belief that we have, right? To put it to a test. So my question to Nate and or Rory, either one of you guys based on this, but we'll start with Nate, is like, how would you approach somebody who was mildly approachable, on this? What were some of the things that you might, I know we talked about some questions you would ask before, but I want to just bring this because I feel like it's not an easy question, so.
No. Well, okay. I think the first thing is to be truly honest with yourself and say, what do I know and what do I believe? Right there, because really, what can you know? What can you know? Because even sometimes an experience you have can be wrong, like when you see a snake in the grass, but you realize it's just a garden hose, right? So sometimes
Hmm.
we are even wrong when we directly experience something, right?
Hmm.
And in all kinds of different situations, altered states, who knows what, okay? So just got to be careful of what do you know. And, you know, the only thing you can actually know factually is that you're having an experience. Boom, done. Beyond that, everything else is belief. And that's belief if we hold on to it like it is the truth. Because again, what is the truth? You can only know what the truth is of what you know. And the only thing you can know, period, ever, is that you're having an experience. I mean, look, I feel like I am experiencing my desk right here. But you know what? This thing is just a blob of frequencies just vibrating at different, like it's not actually even there. It's not solid. So, again, maybe it's too abstract of an answer, but to pull it back to, being more grounded is like,
Yeah.
again, so if you think this is a desk, no, you believe this is a desk, you have built a model of it, boom, in your mind, and that's how you're experiencing it. So again, no one knows anything. And anyone that says they know anything other than they're having an experience, they're talking about what they believe. And that's subjective, right? To some degree, right? I mean, like you can't tell people believe different things. And
Sure.
we believe that a desk is a desk, but it's actually not even solid. So again, I think we just hold on too hard to our ideas because they make us feel safe. They make us feel everyone just wants to feel safe and
Hmm.
feel like they have a grip on reality. And I think that sometimes that neurosis of needing that control, and I'm talking even from my own experience, me too. I'm
Yeah.
not saying
Yeah.
I got to figure it out. I don't. But what I'm saying is like, I don't have a grip on reality because I can only perceive this much of the light spectrum or whatever. Like there's so much going on that maybe I should just keep trying to figure out what's going on with an open mind and not butt heads too hard with anyone because no one actually knows shit.
Mm. So you have a an approach of building a bridge more than reorganizing someone's viewpoint. So I hear that and I like that. I'm going to just ask for just a slight clarification. So again,
Sure.
the scenario is so I understand how you think, but
Sure.
you're interacting with somebody who believes that they know,
Okay.
okay,
Totally. Yeah.
and and their the belief in their knowing is verifiably detrimental. Okay, so like again, hard time socializing,
Gotcha.
hard time interacting with people. Life is not, you know what I'm saying? They have more enemies than friends. They spend even, we could say, more time posting online, their random thoughts, hard time finding work. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, very kind of rough around the edges. And being smooth isn't necessarily like the best. Okay, just because you have a lot of friends doesn't mean you're a great person. Just because you have two friends doesn't mean you're a loser either. So I'm
Sure.
not judging someone's life choices. I'm just saying, like, this person looks like and feels like and appears like it's difficult for them because of the beliefs that they hold are so, not just outside of society, because the tantric path, those who have followed the beat of their own drummer have, like Rumi, for example, right? Always people like to use, he was outside of the world. There's the left-hand path. He's a tantrika. And a lot of the Buddhist monks and a lot of the Buddhist practitioners, the yogis, they do weird things. They cover themselves in the ash of dead people. You know what I'm saying? They sleep in the graveyards. You know what I mean? So I'm not poo-pooing a different path by any way, shape, or form. But what I can say is that from what we've done and what you've experienced is that like there are some groups of thoughts, some groups of ideologies that prefer to keep people locked into those ways of being that I believe to be detrimental, and that people have to kind of break out of those things.
Yeah.
And so, as someone who has broken out of those things, who has questioned things, and who has a multi-layered view of reality, right? Like you talked, it's subjective, objective, and then ultimate. On the subjective or objective level, when you are dealing with people,
Yeah.
we're in a world of interconnectivity, right?
Yeah.
And so approaching them from this and trying to like maybe bend someone's mind again, assuming there's an opening, how do you feel like you could approach them that would be an authentic way for yourself?
I mean, yeah, a lot of thoughts. I mean, one of them is like, honestly, I don't actually try to change anyone's mind because
Hmm.
I don't have anything to tell them I don't have a better answer. I just
Mm.
have a bunch more questions,
Mm.
like where again, like whatever, we can go down rabbit holes of
Sure.
Anunnaki or aliens or whatever. Like
Yeah,
all I
yeah.
have are more questions. I can't give good answers or a better way of seeing reality, but
Hmm.
I mean, again, and you can only help someone who wants to be helped.
Mm.
So if there is a window, one thing maybe I would ask someone, is like, you know, uh, kind of like you will know by their fruits, right? Like, what are the fruits of what you're believing? Are they bringing you closer to people or pushing you farther away? Like, what are the reactions you're getting from people maybe you care about, right? Like, I think that could be a better
Sure.
question to ask than anything is like, is this bringing you happiness and peace, or is this bringing you turmoil?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not trying to tell you what to believe, but what I'm saying is, are you happy? Are the people in your life happy? Is it cohesive? Like, because I don't think that the truth should be divisive.
Yeah.
I mean, because the reality is the non-dual reality. So that is the opposite of being divided. So,
Hmm.
like, let's look, are we dividing ourselves? So are we focusing on what we don't believe? Can we focus on what we all believe? Because I believe that every tradition is basically, there is one ultimate truth. And I feel like that one ultimate truth gets alluded to, but maybe covered up in dogma and other things too. But, simple truths like love. we,
Hmm.
we all know what feels good and what feels bad, period. Like, we all know. And if you don't know, maybe you're not human, because, like, I heard someone say, like, any normal human, if I saw a child that I don't know in the middle of the road in danger, I would go to save them. Period. Anyone would want to save another person's child. Like, it doesn't matter if it's yours or not. You see a child in danger, you want to save it. And so if you're not thinking that way, you're either sick or in sometimes, there's some fucked up shit going on, but
Yeah. Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
we no one should want to hurt each other. So again, like, what are the outcomes of our beliefs?
Yeah.
And they're causing damage and pain and sadness. Like, I don't know, maybe we should question it a little bit.
Yeah. I think that's a really great question. What are the outcomes of our beliefs?
Yeah.
That's really that's a good one. I like that. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. 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 Definitely. Rory, you were nodding your head quite a bit. I wanted to hear if
Yeah, I was thinking about, what are the fruits and basically just referring back to the feeling, So if someone is really, even myself as someone who, part of my job is like teaching about really far out things and math, and I really have great reverence for how far logic can get you and thought, and but I really make most of my decisions based off how I feel, and sometimes how I think can influence how I feel. But if I was going to try and talk to someone who thinks that they know something, I would really try and talk to their heart,
Mm.
and see, like Nate said, like, are you happy? What are the fruits? Like, how long are you willing to are you willing to be right to sacrifice your happiness? Yeah. And I think there's a real power in we have this common saying of a heart to heart, but I think you can speak to someone's heart, and that's the most powerful way to really change someone's mind. I don't think that you'll make much headway trying to make someone wrong or less correct, but just providing them with, just pointing out how much better they might feel in a different scenario.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think that's not it's interesting, because we've been podcasting for, man, it's almost 5 years. We're very close to doing this for 5 years. And so that means that I've been able to, be here and do this and ask questions and be asked questions and have on people who I don't know and get to have what I believe actually are heart to hearts, in this way. And so I feel both of pieces of myself. Like Rory, I feel like the heart to heart stuff. I like to ask people deep questions, shit that has meaning. But then I'm doing like Nate's piece, which is like questioning. Let me question to see what's in there. Like I want to know, like let me get in there and then also let me share so that like you don't feel like you're the only one who's doing it. Like I'll be willing to put myself out on a limb, and I feel like this particular mode of communication now, which is obviously very well integrated into society, and I think most people listen to some podcasts at some point, you know, and so it's a really wonderful way for people to express their own individual wisdom, and things that they have put through the ringer, right, Nate? That, stuff that you have, what in Buddhism they say, what cut and burned and whatever polished, and that it's still gold after you've put it through the test, after you've tested your beliefs, and now it's a real thing because you're like, okay, I did all the things that I could to this piece of information or this experience or whatever, and it's still here. It's unfazed. Actually, it's stronger now that I have tried to, make it more malleable. It's just become more firm, and not firm so that it can break, like more firm that within me, and it's changing the way that I think, feel, believe, and experience the world. And I'm just always happy to do this. I'm always happy to have good people on and have these discussions. I never know where these things are going to go. I feel like I'm in a semester now of like social psychology, but like a social network is a group of individuals who are holding up that network. So in one sense, we're talking about cults on a large scale, and we wanted to talk, a little bit about that, which is, why I wanted you to come on here today to talk about that. But in a larger sense, a cult could be a community of like-minded folk supporting each other, and like you said earlier, Nate, reminding each other of the layers of reality, and of the importance of heart-to-heart communication, the importance of questioning, and more importantly, the importance of communication, the importance of getting together with people and like listening to what they think. Because Nate, I believe you. When if you were to see somebody's child or just a child on the street by himself, let's just say a 3-year-old, you're driving down your street to your house or your apartment or whatever, however you're listening to it, and there's just a kid in the middle of the road crying with the poopy diaper, and it's raining outside, you are 100% going to stop your car and grab that kid, cover him up, and look around for their parents. Nothing else matters. You're
Yeah.
going to do that. And if you don't, you said it. They're sick, and I don't think you meant like, oh, they're fucked up, like they're crazy. No, there's something wrong. Like there's an illness inside of that person,
Yeah.
and yet we can objectify other people's kids as, oh, they're bad, oh, they're this or they're whatever, because we removed their humanity from them. And why can we do that? Because we haven't sat down with them. But the hope is that we don't always have to sit down with other people to understand and be reminded of their humanity, because we all share the same identical humanity, And even though it's a greeting of a good of salutation, it's a greeting in Indian culture, or in Tibetan culture, but most of us yogis say it at the end of a yoga class. In the Western culture, the word that is also cliche is namaste, right? Which is the acknowledgement of the enlightened or awakened version in someone else. And they say that back to me. So then it's a awareness that I have the same thing with inside of myself. And this is the positive aspect of being in a community of like-minded folks. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for joining us today, Nate. I appreciate it. Rory, as always, man, thank you for coming on. I'm glad that I found you randomly on a CEU course that I was taking, and I'm glad to have Nate on here with us. I'll give you guys just a minute or so if you guys have any parting shots before we go. Anything you want to shout out or whatever, please take the time to do that now.
I just really quickly would like to say again, if you want to change anyone's mind about anything, maybe live such a happy, positive life that they start asking you questions. So leading by example, boom, right there. You don't got to change anyone's. You just let that light within you shine, and that is going to illuminate everything. That's all you got to do. Beyond that, do jujitsu. Anyone,
Yeah.
everyone. It's dope. It's amazing what it does for your mind. It's beautiful. Do 10th planet jujitsu or otherwise, whatever you got, go do it. You will not regret it. You will regret not doing it. at some point. Hopefully you don't regret that ever, but like, that's how it goes.
And Nate, where can people find you, man?
I mean, mostly Instagram. Well, you can check out nathanorchard.com. Actually, I'm
Okay.
building my website and building an online curriculum. And, I'm at the kind of beginning stages of, I mean, I've got actually 80 videos now uploaded onto my monthly subscription. It's called the Dead Orchard Society. I have a jujitsu move named after me called the Dead Orchard. Or you can just check me out on Instagram, Nate Orch 10P.
Nate Orch,
Yes, sir.
10P.
That's right.
Okay.
Yep.
And that's the number 10 and the letter P.
That's right.
I'll
The
find it
10th
and I'll
planet.
yeah,
Yeah,
and I'll when I do these clips, I'll tag you and everything else that we do for sure.
absolutely. Nice.
But yeah, awesome. Thank you. Do you have a YouTube?
I do have a YouTube, just Nathan Orchard. You should be
Okay.
able to find it. It's got a skull apple is my logo. It's pretty dope.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, man. We appreciate that.
Thank you, and thank you for having me here. Seriously,
Of
it was just
course.
cool to have these types of conversations. I love them.
Yeah, yeah, no, well, no, you're welcome back anytime. If there's anything you ever want to discuss or just shoot the shit for whatever, you're always welcome on with myself and my fellow doctor here. Rory, any parting shots for you, my brother?
I just want to say thank you again, Daniel.
Oh,
Thanks,
my
Nate, for
pleasure.
coming on. We'll have to have you again, and we didn't even talk about martial arts,
We
so
did not. Yeah.
yeah, I'm
That's
I'm
me.
I'm pumped to hear you talk about that. And Nate's actually one of the only people who's met my Taoist teacher, and I
Mm.
really hype him up. And I'm sure people are like, yeah, yeah, but I'd love to hear his take on his experience with it.
Boy,
So
yeah,
maybe another
it was a
time.
powerful one, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, that'd be great. Yeah, I love that. We need stories of good people. There's a lot of stories of shit people. We need some stories of people who do exactly what you said, which is inspire others by their beingness. That's like a deep thing to aspire to. So yeah, yeah, yeah. We'll come on and we'll do it again.
Awesome.
Um, awesome. Well,
Speaking of,
yeah,
sorry,
go ahead.
I was just saying, speaking of cults, I just remembered something Master Song used to say was he would tell me, I can only trust you if you can trust yourself.
Mm,
So when you can trust yourself, then I can actually trust you. And so I thought that was very,
I'm gonna chew on that one for a minute.
yeah, that's
yeah,
I
it
like
was
a
that.
good
like,
one.
yeah, because it's like a cult in itself. And so there's these, that you want to conform to it, but at the same time, it's, keep your individuality. So.
Hmm. Well, when people are teaching you methods of individuality and freedom, you're probably in a good place. When people are teaching you confirmation, conformity, right? Then that's a good thing to question, in my opinion, right? That's like you had questions earlier that you would ask people, like, what are the fruits of your actions? And I would say, are the people who you're surrounding yourself with in terms of influence or teachers, are they giving you techniques for liberation? Are they giving you techniques so that you can trust yourself or so that you could be independent without having the necessity for me? I want to teach you not to need me. That's why I want you to be your own sort of your franchise. You are your own, thing. You don't need you can want to be around me and you can want to be around your teachers or your whoever, of course, because it's nice to get this kind of feedback, but ultimately, like, I want to bring you and help you to get to that place of silence so that you can connect with the same thing that I'm connecting with and live that, not just only
Not
have
give
it.
your power away to someone else for your connection, essentially.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Teach you how to plug in
Yeah.
without using my outlet, you know.
Yeah.
So awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much for coming on. I really do appreciate it. Audience, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, whatever you're on. Please make sure to comment, subscribe, do all that kind of stuff. I don't care if you comment, really, to be honest. Just subscribe. It helps us out. You know how this goes. We're fighting the algorithm. And so, we believe in the message that we have been doing. We don't ask for money from everybody. We don't have advertisements turned on. I don't need to talk to anything else because I'm sponsored by my motherfucking self. And we love it that way. And that's how it's going to be. So we just want to help get the things that we find to be useful and inspirational out to other people is really kind of like a measure of counterculture influence, actually. So that's kind of like the mission. But if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or complaints, that's another C word. There's some other C words that I don't want to say either. But feel free, leave a comment in the YouTube. Hit us up at ginandtantra@gmail.com, or hit us up on the gram, the Gin and Tantra podcast. For Rory and Nate, this is Daniel. We'll catch you guys in the next one. It's so smooth when I do it. Peace.
Peace.